Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. This is Shelly from Crafty Cottage Dreams. I hope everybody had a blessed Christmas and a Happy New Year. Yes, 2023, here we come. I am here and I'm finally finished with my Savannah Rose journals. These are spoken for in the event that they change their mind. They will be listed in my Etsy shop. However, these are spoken for. So, tattered lace. The reason why I made two was, well, so she can have a choice. She likes vintage and she likes pastel colors. So that's kind of the theme that I went with. They're very vintage, and shabby. So how about we just get started? The papers I used are from TheJournalocityShop, her beautiful covers, and her documented covers, and Heather from Ruby&Pearlxo and SamPoole. And of course, I've used many appliques and laces from Esme's shop over at CraftyMeShop on Facebook. And along with, I also used a bundle of lace I purchased from Amy Love a while back, and they were just sitting there, and I'm like, hey, let me just tea dye these. And yeah, so I used a bundle of Amy Love's laces and I tea dyed them. And of course, I always use my beautiful sari silk. I love sari silk and I can't get away from that. But these babies, or I should say beauties, because I'm really quite pleased with them, are very long. They are 11 inches in length and 4 inches in width. And I'm super happy with the way they came out. It looks like there's a lot going on in there maybe. I did stuff them. I go a little overboard with the whole stuffing, but you get your money's worth. It took me some time to make. Actually, I thought it would take me longer, but I'm just really pleased with the way they came out. I went very vintage, and of course, I had to throw in the laces, and that way vintage meant shabby. So let's get started. We're going to start with, and they're very crunchy. We're going to start with this one. So we have this one. I'll move that aside for a minute. And here she is. You hear that, guys? Crunchy, soft cover, and we'll get to that in a moment. But all these right here are not attached. These are extra goodies that I just attached to the journal. So yeah. So let's start with this, because there is a lot going on here. So I just attached with a bulldog clip some beautiful, that's avocado dyed. And we have tea dyed, a beautiful applique, and a small little doily. And that is just attached to the top of the journal with that bulldog clip right on the top there, because I just loved the look of that. I just thought it was so pretty just attached right up there. So we'll set that aside, and then we will untie, and it's just wrapped with some beautiful cream colored sari silk, and we'll set that aside. And here is the front cover. Savannah Rose. And I just think It's beautiful. I just love, love, love the way it came out. And I used SamPoole stamps, her beautiful stamps, which you'll see throughout this journal as well. So I have a clip attached right here, just a small little Tim Holtz baby clip, and I'm going to set that aside. And here, which is tucked to the front of the cover, tucked right inside here, is this beautiful tag that I've made. It's just collaged. I did some stamping, some stenciling. I've used some 1800 book pages here. And then some vintage tape that I've created. And there is the back you can journal on. And then I've added a key. And using SamPoole stamps. And then we have a little clip there as well. And then I just used the binding there for the top of the tag. So there's that tag. And here is the front cover. And then I have a little bow pin here with this beautiful beaded charm, applique, a rusty pin, and of course I had to add some bling and this beautiful image from Ruby and Pearl. And what I did was color in her little, I don't know if you can see with my colored pink pencil. I colored in her hairband pink. And this flips open. And this is your front cover of the journal. And we have this beautiful image of this woman. And I did color in with my colored pencils her dress to be pink. And then we have some beautiful tatting here, and that's from Linda Price. I will post everybody's links down below in the description box. And I did some sewing all along the journal in the front and in the back. And then in the back here, I used my stencil, and this is a SamPoole stamp. And of course that flips open, and on the inside of here, we just have a receipt, which I distressed with my gold ink, and that just sits right inside here. If I can get it back in. Here we go. And I loved that I did this flip out. It is attached. However, if you do want to take it off, you most certainly can. It's just adhered with a little bit of glue and some vintage tape on the inside, which you can see right here. And I backed this cover with this packaging paper, this crinkly packaging paper, and I sewed all around, which I love because it gives it that soft, crinkly touch to it and sound that we all love. And before I actually get started with that, I also made, before we dive right into this journal, I'm going to put that over there with a tag. I also created a little mini journal to go along with this Savannah Rose journal. And I stamped in the back with SamPoole's. I used the binding. And then a beautiful applique here. Did some collaging. Again, I sewed all around. And I used that same packaging type material. And we'll just flip through this really quickly. It's just a little mini journal. I did some collaging there. It's a very old book page. That's why I used masking tape to reinforce right in there. Did some more collaging there, SamPoole stamp. And then I made this little tag, and it's just adhered with a brad, one of Tim Holtz brads, which is removable if you wanted it to come off. Just did some collaging here. And then here you have a little Tim Holtz. You just have a little, whoops, coupon, which has been coffee stained, and then the vintage receipt that I distressed, and those are Heather's over at Ruby and Pearl. And I forgot where this went. It went right here. And then I did some more collaging and stamping. There's the center. Some more collaging. And here's another little tag with Tim Holtz brad. You can remove, leave in. Your choice. Some more collaging and stamping. And here is the back. So there is the little mini journal that goes with this Savannah Rose journal. It's the baby journal. All right, now that we got that done, we'll set that aside. Excuse me, I need a sip of my coffee. All right, so let's move on to the inside. So I just love it. These journals are very neutral with pops of color. So obviously the front cover has that pop of that pastel pink tied in with all neutral colors. So it's very neutral. So here's the inside, and here we have just a polka dotted little bag, and I have collaged it, and I use SamPoole stamp here, and then Esme's beautiful sequined trim, which I tea-dyed all of the trims, guys. And then inside this pocket we have Savannah Rose, which sits right here, and we have another vintage receipt that you can certainly journal on. And that tucks right in there. And I did a little stamping here throughout, and all of these papers, I've distressed the edges on every single page, and I've done some stenciling here. So I hope you can see well. And then we have this beautiful avocado dyed paper doily, and then I just have a little cluster up here of lace, some stenciling, stamp up here, some stenciling, and then here's this beautiful lace down here, and I love this. I had to add this on the bottom here. It gave it so much softness when you close the cover. I just loved it. And then I tied it on the end with some sari silk. A little tie there. And on the top here, this is SamPoole's digital here. And it's a fabric swatch book. And I just tied it with some of that neutral binding there and added some lace. And then I collaged it with some music paper and the pink. I forget who originally I was inspired to do that from. Who originally, I believe it was Leslie over at 507 Willow House. And she did that, so I was inspired to do that some time ago, and I wanted to use up those papers. So that just, I have a bulldog clip that holds that right to the top there. And then on the other side, we have this beautiful pocket, and it's with that tea-dyed, beautiful lace gathered trim here. And on the other side, we have another beautiful pink vintage receipt, and I think these are receipts or a check maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I've never sat and took the time to read them, but I just love them, and they're Heather's digitals, and I distressed it and with my gold ink. I'm kind of obsessed with that. And then I created a little tag here. Did some SamPoole stamping with her stamps. And this is a coffee dyed index card that I coffee dyed and just collaged. And I colored in with my colored pencils the woman's shirt to add that pink touch, that pop of pink. And then some more stenciling here and just a little lace cluster with this vintage book page. Again, some tea-dyed lace, which is Esme's, this beautiful vintage lace. And then I have a little cluster up there. Hope you guys can see well enough. And then we have a beautiful tea-dyed applique. And then we have this beautiful fabric that I tea-dyed and I added in there as a page. And then we have this vellum paper that I just printed using Heather over at Ruby and Pearl, one of her ledgers. It's on pink vellum. And then over here, we just have a clip, and I'm choosing one of Tim Holtz clips there. Or anything. And then I created just a little pocket here. I made a little ephemera card pocket. I collaged in the back. And in the front just sits a pocket. I collaged in the front here too. And then inside you have a little ticket that was coffee dyed, and then you have these vocabulary, and I'm not sure if this is in German or not, but you have a vocabulary card, and that's avocado dyed. And that just clips on. Right there. And this was clipped over here on the other side. Look at that beautiful paper. I love it. This digital is SamPoole's digital here. Her pastel vintage doily. Here's another receipt and or check. And it has been distressed. And then we have this beautiful, this lace was from my stash. And I did some stenciling. And I actually sewed this lace on. So in the back, you see that stitching. And I left the strings somewhat long because I just love that look in a journal. And here I did some stenciling. I added the vintage tape up here. I have a little cluster with some lace, a little pin, and a pink rosette. And I'm just moving that. And then on this side, we have a small little pocket. And I added this beautiful sequined part of an applique. And then I did a little bit of collaging with that tape there that you see from the other side. And this is from an early 1800 Bible book page. I just did a little collaging there. Then I created this tag, and I put stamped with SamPoole stamp, 1842. And that is the back. And that just sits right inside here. And then I have this beautiful, now this is very fragile, guys. This from this old ledger. I have 2 old ledger books that I purchased from Sacred Mementos. And I added this ledger page. And I just added a little avocado dyed eyelet trim there. And I did put masking tape along here. I love the look of masking tape. I purchased a whole bunch, and I've kind of been obsessed with putting it in my journals, but it also secures some of the little bit of, you know, tear that you had from the ledger. And this is dated up here, September 1923. And I put some vintage tape there. You can certainly still, it's fragile, but not fragile enough where you cannot journal on it if you choose to do so. And then, of course, with always my Savannah Rose journal, I have this tea-dyed heart-shaped vintage, well, it's not vintage. It's fairly new, but it's tea-stained. And I tied it with some sari silk, so this opens right here. And it's kind of your own little secret spot within your journal. And then I have just a little cluster up here. Again, some stenciling and a little cluster here with some tea-dyed lace, a pink rosette, and I had to add some bling to tie in with the bling that you see in the front here. Here I just did some stenciling, and then of course SamPoole stamp and that beautiful avocado dyed eyelet, some vintage tape here. And again, here is that ledger, and I did use masking tape and some vintage tape, and I just love that look inside. I love this look inside this journal. And then we have a little pocket here with Esme's Beautiful, and I tea-dyed that as well. Sequin trim, ruffled sequin trim. And then we have this coffee-dyed index card that I stamped in the back and collaged in the front. Also did some stamping here. And that just tucks right inside there. And then again, I did some stenciling on the bottom here, and I did a little cluster right up here, this tea-dyed lace with a button with some of that pink thread still in it. And then we have a ball pin with some beautiful nude sari silk. And then we have, if I can get it, just a little charm there. Pink floral charm with a pearl button. And then here, I have this glassine bag that I tea-dyed, and I collaged the front, did some SamPoole stamping, just a little cluster with a vintage button, and inside I have a card, a vintage card, and also I put inside the bag some various buttons and ball pins for you. Oops. And the card will sit right inside there, and it just tucks on the side there. And then I did some stenciling. In here I sewed that cluster up there. You can see where I sewed. I love the look of the sewing and the different stitches. And then I did some SamPoole stamping, added some vintage trim, avocado dyed eyelet. And then I created this little card with just Esme's Beautiful that I tea-dyed lace. That is a flip up. And I added, this is from an old 1800 book page, and then I did some stamping with some SamPoole stamp, and also in the back. So pretty. And then we have, there is the center. And I used some masking tape to secure that. And here I added this tea-dyed avocado here, some stamping, some stenciling. And on this side, we have just a tea-dyed tea bag that I tea-dyed. And on the end of the tea bag, I just did some stamping and used one of those tickets and SamPoole stamp, and I just added some vintage tea-dyed trim. Just did a little cluster here, SamPoole stamp here in the corner. And in the inside of the tea bag, you have, again, receipt. And that just tucks right inside. And where did my clip go? Okay, I went on this side. There we go. And that just clips on the side there. Some stamping here. Here's that beautiful ledger. And then on the top of that ledger, I created this little cluster with this little pink heart. Here's the back of that. And then here's another pocket here on the bottom with that beautiful tea-dyed sequined ruffled trim lace. And then we have an old library card, and I just wrapped it with some of that binding. Again, some stenciling, stamping, and then some trim here. And I just added a little cluster on the top there. And here I just created, I don't know, one of these long little, you can use it to journal on. I created this lace heart, added a little brad here on the top, a little pearl there, and did some collaging. It's with just some, there's Ruby and Pearl vintage photos. I used a lot of her vintage photos, digital, avocado dyed parchment paper, coffee dyed paper, you can journal on. And that tucks right there. And that is the end of your little secret. So I'll tie that right up real quick. There we go. Some of that vintage tape. Here's that ledger and a little cluster on the top here. Here we have a little pocket with some lace trim. And I used one of those time cards. It was a long time card. I cut it in half and just did some stenciling with SamPoole, well, not stenciling, SamPoole stamp. Some sari silk, little collaging. And this is from an old early 1800s book page. And that tucks right in there. And in here, I just created a little ephemera card. I forgot what we call these things. But anyway, I added some ledger paper. And then did SamPoole stamp here and on here. And that is the back. And that just tucks right there. And over here we have another receipt, which I won't open up because you get the gist. But it's a pretty blue. I did some cluster up here with the tiniest little doily, a button, some eyelet here on this old book page, did some stenciling, just a little lace cluster over on the side, beautiful trim here. Here's the back of that vellum, the tea-dyed fabric, some stenciling. Here's some beautiful trim, some stenciling, old book page, and that just wraps around there. The eyelets. And then here we have a pocket, and I just have one of those inside that pocket, vintage receipts, and that just tucks right in there. And then on the top here, we have another bulldog pin, which that clips to the top there with this fabric, another fabric swatch for you guys. Plenty of fabric swatches to work with. And I have this beautiful flower here, which I tea dyed a piece of, these are all tea dyed, guys, and a little piece of applique, a doily, and then we have this beautiful so it's so cute, and it's just tied, all tied with together with that binding, and that is attached to the top of this page. I love it. Some more stenciling here, SamPoole stamp. I love those stamps. The little cluster up there. Here is that doily, avocado dye doily, and the back of that bag. And then on the back here, which is just attached with a little clip, I created this journaling card, SamPoole stamp here. There is the back. I added this beautiful pink, beautiful trim. Just did some collaging. Some stenciling you can see. I'm not sure if you can see floral stenciling. SamPoole stamp here in the corners and up in this corner. That beautiful lace. And that just has a ball pin with some, silk there on the top. So that is the, oh, and I did a little cluster right here on that polka dotted bag. I just love it. And again, hear that, guys? I love it. I just love how it came out. Look at how full it is. But I can't help myself. I'm sorry, guys. Most of this stuff can be taken out. You know, placed in different spots if you want to. You can take it out. You got your fabric, all this extra fabric you can play with. So here it is. Very, very neutral journal. Very vintage and shabby with that pop of pink. And I just love how she came out. I love it. I love how it came out. And this tucks in here with, I know I have a clip, here it is. With that clip, and then this fabric goes on top there, and then I tie it with this beautiful sari, cream sari, and the baby journal. There's the first one, and I kind of knew this would be a long video. I'm sorry about that, but I'd rather. And here is the second one. It's pretty much the same, guys. So I'm going to go through this really rather quickly, except this is the very vintage, again, vintage meets shabby. very neutral in color with a pop of blue and some pink. And again, we have the baby journal. So I'll just go through this really quickly. Little applique here, some collage, did sewing throughout the front and the back, SamPoole stamp. So I'm just gonna go through this very quickly. Collaging SamPoole stamp. Another collaging here. Again, a little ephemera card with that brad. You can remove if you choose to do so. And here I did use that colored pencil in pink to her dress with that pop of color. And again, you have a vintage ticket or a receipt with a small little ticket there in the front and the back. Collaging with SamPoole stamp, some collaging. Look at these cuties. And again, I did her little hair top and colored it in with that, my colored pencil. So cute. Again, it's attached with a brad there. And that is the small mini journal. And then I'm going to go through this really quick because it's pretty much the same, guys, except different shades. And again, I use this Sorry Silk. It's in 2 different shades of the pastel blue and pink. It's beautiful. And then here is the front cover. Look at how beautiful she is. She's so cute. And again, I just, with a bulldog clip, again, you have beautiful applique, or, you know, it's a net lace applique, a little doily, and this little light blue dyed pearl applique. And that just simply clips to the top of the journal. And we have a little clip here on the side, which holds this tag that I made from that time card. I used some vintage tape, did some stenciling and stamping. This is from an early 1800s book page. Heather's Vintage Photos. I added a key and did some stamping and added a little clip here on the side. And that just tucks inside of there. And then here is the front cover. I have this beautiful cluster of charm here on a ball pen, some bling, a beautiful avocado dyed applique with a rusty pin here. I did some stamping on the bottom, and she's adorable, and I painted her little dress with my colored pencils in blue. And here is the front cover. She's beautiful. I did do some stenciling on the front cover, added some masking tape for added security, stability, I should say, and I just loved the look of it. I did some stenciling here in the back, and I sewed all around. And this flips out, which is attached, and here inside you have this pink vintage receipt. Again, I distressed it with my distress ink, and that just tucks right inside there, and this flips back, and then we'll go to the inside. And again, if you wanted to remove that, you certainly could. I love the crunchy, I just love the cover and the crunchiness of it. Again, I added some tea-dyed lace on the bottom of that page there. I love it. I did some collaging here, some stamping, tea-dyed sequin trim here, using this polka dotted craft bag, and Savannah roses stamped on the side there. And inside that bag we have a receipt, and that'll just tuck right inside there. And we're gonna go through this quickly. I did some stamping here. Again, I distressed all the pages with vintage photo. I did all the stenciling, avocado dyed paper, doily. I did a little cluster up here. Some more beautiful stenciling. Some vintage tape here on the bottom. And here you have that fabric swatch from SamPoole. I added that binding. Added some, it's a fabric swatch there with some vintage music paper. And here we have a vintage receipt in blue, and I did some stamping here. And here we have a little lace cluster, lace and applique cluster. There's that vellum, pink vellum paper, some stenciling, the vintage ledger, and I added avocado dyed eyelet there in the, not sure if you can see, on the top there. Vintage tape, I added a little cluster there. And here is a glassine bag that I coffee dyed, or tea dyed, I should say. Just did a little cluster. Here's this cutie patootie SamPoole stamp. We have a vintage playing card, and you have something buttons and ball pins in there to play with, and that just clips right on the side there. And we did some stenciling. I love stenciling in my journals. I just love it. And then we have this vintage tea-dyed trim from TheJournalocityShop that just flips up. This is from an old 1800s book page that I stamped on using SamPoole stamps. And in the back as well. And that just tucks right in there. And I did some sewing on the side here with that lace in this old book page. You can see the sewing there on the side. Some stenciling, and again, here is this beautiful ephemera card. I stamped in the front. And here's one of those. I forgot what these are called. But anywho, and I just used that old ledger and use SamPoole stamp and just attach it to there, and there is the back. So cute. And then here on the bottom, I just tied a little bow in the bottom of this lace here, which you see on the next page. that little bow, which is a pocket. And then we have that index card with, just did some collaging and SamPoole stamp and tied some binding around it, and that tucks right in there. Here's another ephemera card using the time punch cards. And then I just did early 1800s book page. And did SamPoole stamping there in the back. And that clips right in there. And again, you have your secret little, it's with this beautiful sari, your own little secret spot within your journal. And I did some stamping there, some stenciling here, and this is a heart lace doily that I tea dyed. And then we just have a vintage receipt upside down. And that tucks right in here. And then, so these are certainly removable, and I just added some sari silk on the top of those mini clips. And then on the other side, we have that tea bag, tea dyed tea bag. I did just some stamping and collaging with some tea dyed lace. And then you have a receipt. And I distressed that in my gold, with my gold ink. And that just clips right there. Here is that delicate ledger, and on the top of that ledger, some ruffled sequined tea dyed trim, and I used some vintage tape and some masking tape. It's very delicate. Some stenciling on the side here, SamPoole stamp. Also plenty of room to journal in and add your own. I have this beautiful floral pearl. It's just a little cluster there. So pretty. Some stenciling, some tea-dyed lace on this old book page. Here is some tea-dyed lace. Stenciling, some stamping, a little sequined cluster up there. And then we have a little pocket, lace pocket with an old library card there, wrapped with some binding, some vintage tape. That is your center of your journal. Some tea-dyed applique, pearl and sequin applique here, some stenciling, a pocket here with Esme's beautiful that I tea-dyed. And then we have the index card where I did some collaging with a vintage button, a doily, did some SamPoole stamping. And that tucks right in there. I did some stamping, stenciling. Here's the fabric. I sewed some beautiful lace trim here. You can see in the back the sewing. And then we have, again, this little heart that I created. Some collaging. And it's just with some avocado dyed parchment paper and coffee dyed paper you can journal on. Just a little cluster there. And that clips right up here. I did SamPoole stamping, some avocado dyed eyelet trim, and then we have this pocket. I did some, it's just an ephemera card. I made a little pocket. Here it holds one of these vocabulary cards, which has been avocado dyed. I did some stamping and some collaging. It's a little pocket. And that tucks or clips right in there. Again, we have another vintage receipt, which is clipped on the other side. Some vintage tape on this old ledger. Some stenciling here on the bottom. A little fabric lace cluster up here as a tab. Some of my vintage tape. And then SamPoole stamp, and that is your little secret, spot there. And let me just put this back. Sorry guys, came out of the hole. There we go. That is your little secret within a secret journal. And then we have a little pocket here with just a little cluster. And a SamPoole stamp. She tucks right in there. Did some stenciling on the top there. And I sewed some beautiful lace on that book page. It's that ledger. That pink vellum paper. And here I have that, it's the same as the last one, so I won't, yeah, I will, just so you can see. SamPoole fabric swatch, a little avocado dye doily, beautiful applique, and then we have this tea dyed. They're all tea dyed, avocado dyed. And that just clips right up there. And then on the other side, we have that vintage receipt. We did some stenciling, vintage tape. We have a little fabric cluster up there. Some masking tape, stenciling. And here is the avocado dyed doily, paper doily, avocado dyed eyelet with some stenciling, SamPoole stamp. I did a little cluster here in the back of that bag and added this little dingle dangle. And then over here on the back of the page, we have this ephemera card, which I stenciled with my gold ink pad and did some stamping, SamPoole stamp, little collage with some lace. This is beautiful pastel pink, beautiful lace, and some collaging in the back. And that is the journal, guys. And that just attaches right in there. And again, there is the back. I just, hear that? I just love it. Love, love, love how it came out. Just so pretty. I'm pleased with it anyway. So here it is, guys. So I'm going to put this back in. Clip that up. Then we have your little fabric that attaches to the top here. And that is the second one. So that is it, guys. These are my journals. So, again, these are spoken for in the event that it may or may not go through, or they change their mind or whatnot. If you still see it in the shop, then it is still available. So that's it, guys. Thank you for joining me. And I have so much on my desk. I need to clean. But anyway, guys, my next adventure is, I was so inspired by Rose Hill Paper, and she created these planners. So that is my next adventure. They're 2023 planner journals, and I just thought they were absolutely awesome. So, and I will be creating a bunch of those. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, I'm so happy with these chunky monkeys. I just think they're so neutral, vintage, shabby, you know, with that pop of color. I just love how they came out, and I'm pleased. And guys, have a great day. And until next time, much love and hugs. And we'll see you in the next video. Bye.